The story starts with a hardcore gamer named Alan who has just wrapped up a game that took him a solid 3 years to finish. Once it's finally over, he can't help but feel underwhelmed, realizing that the game was actually boring and kind of a letdown. Even with all that time invested, it never really pushed him or made him struggle. What Alan truly craves is a game that can push him to his absolute limits, something brutally difficult that would take at least a decade to conquer. He wants a genuine challenge, not something that can be beaten with nothing but patience. And with that thought in mind, Alan immediately starts hunting for his next game. That's when he stumbles upon a title that supposedly never ends. Under normal circumstances, a game installing itself on his computer without permission would be a huge red flag, but he's already completely hooked and doesn't bother backing out. Instead, he dives straight into the settings menu to tweak the difficulty. Wanting the experience to be as punishing as possible, he cranks the difficulty all the way up to hell mode and chooses the untested summoner class just to make things even more chaotic. Without reading a thing, he accepts every term and condition. Unfortunately for him, one of those clauses mentions transporting the player to another world, and before he can process it, Alan finds himself reborn as a newborn baby in the middle of the countryside. A full year passes and life as a baby turns out to be way better than Alan expected. He doesn't have to work, worry about money, or deal with responsibilities, and on top of that, the milk is more than unbelievable, and he has kind and loving parents who take good care of him. His father is named Rodin, and his mother is Theresia, and they seem like a genuinely happy couple. Still, setting the game to hell mode makes it feel like a classic tragic backstory family situation waiting to happen. One night, after being put to bed, Alan raises his tiny arms and starts muttering every command phrase he knows, desperately trying to bring up a status screen. After all, even though he's supposed to be a summoner, he has no clue how summoning is actually supposed to work. Just before giving up and falling asleep, he decides to try one last time, and this time, something really does appear. Unfortunately, it scares Alan so badly that he starts screaming, causing his parents to rush into the room as soon as they hear him. With no choice, he hides the book for the moment. After checking on him and making sure everything is fine, his parents leave the room. The second they're gone, Alan pulls the book back out. Relief washes over him as he finally gets to see his stats after an entire year of trying, and they look about right for a 1-year-old summoner. All of his summoning skills are stuck at the lowest tier, but the book explains that they'll improve the more he uses them, so Alan decides to test it out right away. And from what he can tell, he's currently limited to summoning H-rank insects and beasts, which sounds ridiculously weak, so he's not expecting anything impressive at all. Right then, the book suddenly flips to the message section, and Alan realizes he's received a letter from the world's god of creation. The deity apologizes for how long it took to finish Alan's status book, explaining that the summoner class was still being developed and it ended up taking an entire year to clear all the required approvals. Alan couldn't care less about the apology, but hearing that the summoner class was rushed at the last minute gets him excited. If it was pushed out in a hurry, then there are definitely bugs left behind for him to mess with. Fired up, he decides to test it immediately. He wants to start by summoning an insect, but he quickly runs into a problem when he realizes he has no idea how to actually activate his summoning ability. Normally, he would just check a subreddit or watch a quick tutorial, but there's no internet here, so he's stuck figuring it out by himself. After thinking it over for a few minutes, Alan finally figures out that he needs to create an insect skill card first. He gives it a shot and it works without any issues. Now he's finally ready to summon his insect, but before he can do anything, his mother comes in to check on him again. With no other choice, Alan quickly pretends to be asleep once more. The following day, after his parents get busy with their usual work, Alan opens his grimoire and finally summons the grasshopper. The room floods with bright light, and at first he's completely taken in by how beautiful it looks. That feeling lasts about a second, until a massive grasshopper flies straight into his face and he completely freaks out. After calming down, he realizes this is actually the grasshopper he summoned, so he tries giving it commands. Unfortunately, even though it's a summon, it still has the brain of a grasshopper and doesn't understand a single word he says. But on the plus side, Alan discovers that summoning it boosts his agility and endurance stats, which makes him pretty happy. Sadly, his excitement catches his mother's attention, and when she sees the giant grasshopper on the floor, she instantly squashes it, leaving Alan completely devastated. During the next few days, Alan keeps experimenting with his insect summoning, but eventually he gets bored of it and decides to move on to beast summoning instead. This time, he summons a mouse, and just like before, the book launches it straight at his face, but luckily Alan was ready for it, so it doesn't scare him as much. The mouse also comes with its own stat boosts, but it's still not very smart, so having a real conversation is impossible. That said, one of its skills is called Scurry, and whenever Alan orders it to use that ability, it does so every single time. But even so, the skill itself is pretty damn useless, so Alan quickly realizes that if he wants to summon stronger and more useful creatures, he'll need to level up his summoning abilities first. Alan's grimoire reveals that he can store up to 10 summoning cards at a time, and better yet, the stat buffs from each summon stack together. So if he loads up 10 mouse cards, that's a plus 10 boost to both attack and HP. That alone already puts him well beyond your average baby. But to really break the system and go full overpowered, he's gonna need to start leveling up fast. Normally, that wouldn't be such a pain, but the genius Alan chose Hell Mode because he thought the extra difficulty would be fun. Now, gaining experience takes 100 times longer than usual, which means he's officially locked himself into a hellish grind fest. Later that day, Rodin stumbles back into the house, drenched in blood, but thankfully none of it is his. He just helped the village guys bring down a giant boar. Alan's eyes light up with curiosity, so Rodin offers to take him to see it. Without hesitation, Alan climbs onto his dad's shoulders and they head off toward the hunting grounds. For Alan, this is the first time he's ever gotten to see the world beyond their home, and he's absolutely soaking in the new scenery. But the trip takes longer than he expected, and eventually he dozes off in Rodin's arms. When they finally reach the boar's body, Rodin gently wakes him up. Alan blinks a few times, then freezes. This boar is enormous. He can't even begin to imagine how his dad managed to help kill something that huge. Not long after, the nearby villagers notice Rodin's return and erupt into cheers, hailing him as the hero of the day. Alan turns to ask if the great boar is really that strong, and Gerda explains that it's classified as a C-rank monster. Normally, it takes around 20 hunters to bring one down, so yeah, they're a pretty big deal. That little detail sticks with Alan because now he has a solid benchmark for measuring monster strength. But before he even dreams of summoning something on that level, he knows one thing for sure. He's got to buckle down and start grinding XP like crazy. After 10 relentless months of grinding, Alan finally hits level 2 as a summoner, and with it comes a pretty solid upgrade. His stats get a general boost across the board, and more importantly, he unlocks the ability to summon and fuse G-rank monsters. Hype as that is, there's a catch. Fusion costs a hefty chunk of MP, so Alan wolfs down dinner to refill some mana and rushes back to his room, only to be hit with disappointment again. His grimoire lets him know loud and clear that his max MP still isn't high enough to even attempt a fusion, so back to the grind it is. Fast forward to when Alan turns 3, and he finally gets his MP stat to a high enough level to try out his new skill. He opens the fusion section and manages to create his very first G-rank summon, a bird, which he proudly names Chappie. Chappie's main ability is Voice Mimic, which lets it flawlessly copy any voice it hears, perfect for setting traps or messing with enemies. Alan also adds a frog and a mole to his squad, and the frog is pretty useless because all it does is jump up and flash like a living distraction, but the mole is way more useful because it can tear a massive hole in the ground in seconds. Compared to the H-rank summons, these new ones are way more useful, and for the first time, Alan actually feels like he's playing a proper game instead of just grinding in baby mode hell. Still, he's nowhere near strong enough to take on real threats yet. Around this time, Gerda's daughter Krena shows up looking to hang out. Her version of playing involves sparring, and unfortunately for Alan, she's absurdly strong. He even maxes out all his summon buffs to stand a chance, but she still wipes the floor with him like it's nothing, meaning the girl's on another level. By the end of the day, Alan and Krena head home, and there's a surprise waiting for him. Theresia is pregnant again. Looks like while Alan was off grinding levels, Rodin and Theresia were busy leveling up the family. With Theresia now unable to do heavy work, Alan offers to help out with the harvest. After all, with his summon buffs, his physical stats are basically on par with an adult's now. But his parents immediately shoot that down. They tell him he should just stick to small chores and enjoy being a kid for now. Rodin reminds him that real responsibilities will come soon enough, so he should enjoy the peace while it lasts. Alan feels a little let down at first after being told he can't help with the harvest, but then it hits him. Farm work is absolutely brutal. No sane parent would expect their 3-year-old to be out there doing backbreaking labor. Understanding that, he backs off and lets it go. Rodin's relieved to see his son being mature about it, and things settled down until Theresia brings up something odd she noticed. She says she saw Alan in the backyard earlier, throwing rocks at a tree. Curious, she asks what he was up to. Alan brushes it off, claiming it was just self-defense training in case a monster shows up. But truthfully, he was running an experiment, testing whether he could unlock skills outside of summoning just by repeating basic actions, but sadly, that attempt didn't get him anywhere. Rodin, however, is still impressed with Alan's dedication and says he's looking forward to his appraisal ceremony. Alan's never heard of that before, so he asks what it is. Rodin explains that when a child turns 5, they undergo an appraisal to reveal any hidden talents or skills they might possess, and if Alan ends up with a powerful one, he could have a shot at living a wealthy and successful life. As winter arrives, Alan continues experimenting and decides to test how durable his summons are by summoning a grasshopper out in the snow. To his surprise, it manages to survive out there for an entire day, which he considers a win. But that little win quickly turns into a disaster when Krena pops up again, eager for another sparring match. As usual, Alan gets stomped, but while he's busy fighting her off, he totally forgets about his summon. That's when things take a turn. The grasshopper, still active, ends up crawling up Theresia's leg, scaring the hell out of her. She trips and falls, dangerous enough on its own, but especially risky since she's pregnant. Rodin rushes over, and though Theresia says she's okay, it's clear the fall triggered labor. Whether they're ready or not, the baby's coming now. Rodin quickly tells Krena to go fetch her mom, and once she arrives, she helps Theresia through a rushed delivery. By sunrise, the family welcomes a brand new baby boy into the world. Everyone is filled with joy except Alan, who's left feeling conflicted. He still doesn't understand why a game reincarnated him into this world in the first place, but when he thinks back to his old life in Japan, he realizes there wasn't really much waiting for him there. This new life, unexpected as it is, has given him something far more important. That's why he makes up his mind to keep pushing forward, not just for himself, but to protect the only real family he's ever had. By the time spring rolls around, Alan knows his appraisal ceremony is coming up, so he asks his dad what it's actually like. His father explains that every kid has to go through it once they hit 5 years old, and if Alan ends up with a rare or high-ranking skill, he might just land a shot at the elite path. That said, it's not going to be easy. Competition's pretty fierce this year. A whole bunch of kids are turning 5 at the same time, including Krena. They all make their way to the commoner district where the ceremony's being held. But as they get closer to the church, Alan starts noticing something weird. Most of the other kids look super polished and dressed up while he's stuck in borderline tatters. Now that he's paying attention, he realizes he's been dressed like this since birth. If that's any indication, his family must be seriously low on the social ladder. Still, it doesn't really bother him much. When they reach the church, everyone gathers outside in front of it. A couple of priests step out, and Alan hears folks in the crowd mocking some of the poorer families. The priests aren't having it, though. They shut that talk down fast, reminding everyone that divine blessings don't discriminate. Even a broke farmer's kid could be handed a legendary skill. With that, they usher the crowd inside for the actual ceremony. As Alan steps in, he notices 3 towering statues near the altar. They must represent the deities worshipped in this world. One of them is Elmia, the deity of creation. Come to think of it, Elmia is the same one who sent him that apology message about the delay in developing the summoner class. First up for appraisal is Palomas, the village chief's son. He's told to place his hand on the glowing crystal sphere to reveal his stats. Palomas obeys, and a moment later, the stone wall lights up, displaying his class as a merchant. His father looks pleased with the result, but Alan, on the other hand, was kind of expecting something more dramatic. It's basically the same function as his grimoire, except this version uses letter grades instead of numbers. The process continues as some kids walk away with impressive talents, while others don't get anything worth mentioning. A few hours pass, and now only 2 are left, Alan and Krena. Krena's turn is up, and she practically sprints over to the crystal with excitement. The second she touches it, the whole thing erupts in a blinding white glow. Her father panics for a second, thinking maybe something's gone wrong, but the priests are just frozen in shock. Turns out the reading is legit, and Krena just unlocked the Sword Lord class, one of the most powerful titles out there. Her dad is over the moon, but Krena herself doesn't seem to grasp just how big of a deal this is. Alan isn't all that shocked by the announcement because he's been getting his ass handed to him by Krena for years now, so it kind of checks out. But now it's his turn, and the priest tells him to step up to the altar. When he lays his hand on the crystal ball, nothing happens at first, but then there's a sudden flash of light, and the damn thing blasts him backward. Rodin rushes over, making sure Alan's okay, then turns to the priest and asks what talent his son got, since reading isn't exactly his strong suit. Based on how strong the crystal reacted, he's expecting something insane, but instead the priest says that Alan has 0 talent. Alan's stunned. No way, that's right, he knows for damn sure he's got a skill. But when he looks up at the board, it confirms it. Every single stat is locked at E rank. He's convinced this whole mess is Elmia's fault for completely botching the summoner class code. Before he can spiral too hard, Rodin wraps his arms around him from behind, trying to soften the blow. He doesn't want Alan to feel crushed about not having a talent. They head home together after that, and despite what happened, nobody treats him any differently. Alan really does appreciate how his family supports him, but deep down, he knows the whole no talent thing is bullshit. His grimoire still works like normal, so he figures the E ranks have more to do with the fact that he's stuck playing on Hell mode. All the other kids are the same age as him and probably got evaluated based on their leveling potential. But in Alan's case, since it takes him literally 100 times more XP to gain a level, it makes sense that his stats are stuck in the gutter, even if his real strength is way higher than the board shows. Most folks would have lost their minds over something like this, but Alan isn't some casual noob playing for fun. He lives for the brutal grind. Still, he can't shake the feeling that something's seriously off with the summoner class, especially since he saw some sketchy error code pop up at the bottom of his appraisal. He's already planning to file a mountain of complaints to the dev team over it. The following day, Alan tags along with his family to visit Krena's place. But on the way, he starts picking up on something odd. His dad's been acting off. Over at Krena's house, everyone's in the mood to party and celebrate her becoming a sword lord. But Rodin still looks like he's chewing on a lemon. Jerida flat out refuses to join the celebration until Rodin quits the attitude. At first, Alan thinks maybe his dad's just bitter that Krena got something special, but that's not like him at all. Rodin's not that petty, so whatever's eating at him, it has to be something deeper. The two of them keep going at it for another minute until Gerda finally blurts out that Rodin mentioned cutting ties between their families right before they sat down. Rodden stands by what he said, explaining that now that Krena's a sword lord, she's got a damn near guarantee way out of this tiny backwater town. If things go well, she might even rise to nobility. And if that happens, staying connected to a broke family like Rodden's could just drag her down. Gerda fires back, shouting that he doesn't give a damn about status or any of that crap, but Rodden keeps pushing, saying he's only doing what's best for Krena. The argument heats up again, but their wives eventually step in and pull them apart before it gets worse. Alan's kind of thrown off by how chill everyone seems about the fight, so he quietly asks Gerda's wife if this kind of thing happens often. She just laughs and says yeah, it used to happen all the time, but they always made up after. Turns out the four of them have been close since they were kids, born and raised in the same village. About 10 years back, when word first got out about building a new settlement, they all jumped in together and helped lay the foundations. Gerda and Rodden bonded a ton during that time. Thinking back on it all makes them realize how dumb this argument really is. Not long after, a message comes in that the Knight Order has taken an interest in Krena and they're on their way over. Alan figures the news about her Sword Lord class must spread like wildfire. It's a good thing, of course, as she's finally getting the recognition she deserves. But Gerda still seems a little uneasy because she's way too young to be signing up for knighthood just yet. Then out of nowhere, one of the kids from the appraisal ceremony, the kind who got a decent talent, decides to mouth off. He walks up to Alan and tells him he doesn't belong here, calling him a talentless reject, but Alan couldn't care less. He's still got his summoner powers, so this loser's opinion doesn't mean squat, but Krena isn't having it. No one talks trash about her best friend. She steps up and tells the punk to back off, nearly lops off his damn finger in the process before Gerda quickly steps in and drags her away. Right after that, the village chief announces that the Knight Order has finally arrived. The whole place lights up since nobody here gets to see real knights up close. The chief then calls for Gerda and Krena to come meet the knight captain. Krena's practically shaking with excitement since she's always dreamed of becoming a knight, so meeting the captain in person is like the ultimate wish for her. Alan starts wondering if the knights are planning to take Krena back to the capital for training, but before the knight captain can say anything, Gerda jumps in, saying he can't allow it since she's still just a kid. The captain shrugs it off, saying age doesn't matter. If she's really a sword lord, then she should be more than capable of handling the training. There's no issue, unless of course they made the whole thing up and lied about her being a sword lord just to deceive the Knight Order. Gerda quickly denies it, swearing he's telling the truth, but it's already too late. The captain made up his mind and he orders his vice captain to test Krena in a duel right here, right now. And without hesitating for even a second, the man agrees. Gerda then pleads with the captain to rethink this. He doesn't want his daughter's life on the line over some test. But the captain makes it crystal clear that if Krena refuses to fight, that alone will count as proof that she's a fraud. And if that's the case, not just her, but her entire family will be put to death. One of the knights then hands her a sword. Any normal 5-year-old would have been shaking in their boots by now, but not Krena. The moment she realizes she gets to wield a real weapon, she accepts the duel without hesitation. The crowd clears and the duel begins. Reborn steps forward to face her, and Krena doesn't waste a second and charges in at full speed. And from one look, she's swinging a sword twice her size like it's made of paper, and she's actually managing to keep up with Reborn, forcing him to stay on guard, but he's still handling her without too much trouble. The knight captain watches with a cold stare, clearly not impressed by what he's seen so far. But then Krena blocks one of Reborn's attacks cleanly and gets ready to counter. Before she can strike though, Reborn slams his foot into her and sends her flying across the street, crashing straight into a wall. Gerda loses it. The second he sees his daughter tossed like that, he tries to rush in, but the knights slam him down and pin him to the ground. Alan and Rodden try to help, but they get pushed down too. Alan can't believe what he's seeing. This isn't right. Whether Krena is a sword lord or not, she's still a kid, and the guy she's fighting is a grown-ass knight with years of battle experience. But just then, something changes. Krena starts getting back up, and the air around her shifts. There's this heavy, dangerous pressure rolling off her, and she's not saying a word, just standing there, radiating pure menace. Without wasting a breath, Krena charges in with another full-force assault, locked in like a heat-seeking missile. This time, Reborn doesn't stand a chance. She absolutely steamrolls him, shattering his sword clean in half and nearly lopping off his damn head. Krena looks a little let down that the match ended so fast, but she clearly enjoyed herself. She casually thanks Reborn for the warm-up and strolls off, leaving the poor guy with nothing but the crushing fact that he just got wrecked by a 5-year-old. Gerda exhales hard, grateful that his daughter made it out in one piece, and starts showering her with praise for how well she fought. But before he can even process what just happened, the knight captain steps in and Gerda instantly goes on guard, not wanting that man anywhere near his daughter. This time, the captain drops the arrogance and admits Krena really is a sword lord. He even apologizes for dragging her into the duel. He says he wants to have a proper conversation about her future, but Gerda instantly shuts him down. The captain then offers to let him bring backup to the meeting if that'll help, and after a moment of hesitation, Gerda agrees, only because it makes him feel a bit more secure. They all head to the chief's house for lunch, where Xenoph properly apologizes for the stunt he pulled earlier. He explains that he was ordered by the Baron to verify if a genuine sword lord existed in this village, and after what he just witnessed, there's no denying it. Xenoph then brings up how 3 years ago, a so-called sword saint popped up in a count's household, but that instantly raises red flags for Alan because in the game's system, sword saints are only born from common backgrounds, not noble blood, so that one must have been a total fraud. Turns out that fake ended up serving the royal family, but couldn't live up to the hype. Once they rechecked him, they realized he was just a regular swordsman faking his rank, and after several nobles were caught bluffing their way up the ranks, the kingdom enforced a zero-tolerance policy on forged talent reports. That said, Xenoph genuinely apologizes again for putting Krena through such a rough ordeal. He reassures Gerda that no one's trying to rip her away from him. Instead, they want her to stay home and keep training as usual, and if she chooses to, once she turns 12, she'll have the option to enter the Knight Academy. This was the end of episode 2. Subscribe to not miss the next episode.